You have a mayor named Khan. He's a horrible mayor. He's an incompetent mayor, but he's a horrible, vicious, disgusting mayor. I think he's done a terrible job. London's a different place.
I think President Trump has shown he is racist, he is sexist, he is misogynistic, and he's Islamophobic.
Okay, so President Donald Trump just delivered one of his most inflammatory attacks yet on a major American ally, falsely claiming that London is moving toward implementing Sharia law and branding the city's Muslim mayor as terrible. And British Prime Minister Keir Starmer's response, calling it nonsense, exposes the impossible diplomatic tightrope that Democratic leaders now walk when dealing with Trump's fact-free provocations. And this isn't just about one offensive comment at the United Nations. This is about how Trump weaponizes Islamophobia and misinformation to score political points at home, while simultaneously forcing allied governments to choose between defending their own officials and preserving critical relationships with the world's most powerful country. What makes this particularly shocking is the timing. Trump launched this attack just 1 week after an unprecedented second state visit to Britain, complete with royal banquets and declarations about the unbreakable bonds between the two nations. Now, let's be honest for a moment. Mainstream coverage often focuses on headlines but skips the context, incentives, and power dynamics behind the scenes. That's why this channel exists, to break down what actually matters based on public reporting, institutional rules, and how power really works. If you want to stay ahead of these stories, make sure you're subscribed. We bring context, not spin. All right, let's get back to what just happened. Here's what actually happened. During a rambling speech at the United Nations General Assembly in September 2025, President Trump delivered a sweeping criticism of immigration policies in Europe and singled out the United Kingdom's capital city. Trump stated, now they want to go to Sharia law, referring to London, and called Mayor Sadiq Khan a terrible, terrible mayor. This claim is completely false. There is no proposal, no movement, no government initiative, and no credible political force in London or anywhere in the UK advocating for the implementation of Sharia law as the legal system. Trump fabricated this accusation out of thin air. Prime Minister Keir Starmer responded forcefully but carefully. Speaking to ITV London on Thursday, September 25th, Starmer said, "The idea of the introduction of Sharia law is nonsense, and Sadiq Khan is a very good man." In a separate interview, Starmer described Trump's criticism as ridiculous, marking his most pointed public criticism yet of the American president. But critically, Starmer refused to characterize Trump's remarks as Islamophobic, telling reporters, "I'm not going to get drawn into a war of words." Mayor Sadiq Khan had no such restraint. Khan responded to Trump's comments by accusing the president of being racist, sexist, misogynistic, and Islamophobic. Khan pointed to data showing that a record number of Americans are settling in Britain, suggesting that Trump's characterization of London as somehow dangerous or overrun bears no relation to reality. Khan has the largest personal mandate of any British politician, having won 3 consecutive mayoral elections since becoming the first Muslim-elected mayor of London in 2016. Now, here's where this gets bigger than it looks. Trump's attack on Khan is not new. This is a long-running public feud that dates back to at least 2017, when Khan criticized Trump for pledging a travel ban on people from several majority Muslim countries. Trump has attacked Khan repeatedly over the years, often using inflammatory and racially coded language. But what makes this September 2025 attack particularly significant is its timing and context. Just 1 week earlier, Trump had been in Britain for an unprecedented second state visit, which involved extraordinary royal pomp, including a carriage tour, a white tie banquet at Windsor Castle hosted by King Charles, and a joint press conference with Starmer at Chequers, the Prime Minister's country estate. During that state visit, Trump hailed the US-British relationship, signed agreements on technology and nuclear energy cooperation, and spoke warmly about the special relationship between the two nations. Starmer bent over backwards to accommodate Trump, despite the fact that senior members of his Labour government have been deeply critical of the American president in the past. Foreign Secretary David Lammy labelled Trump a racist KKK and Nazi sympathizer in 2017. Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner attacked Trump's voter suppression in 2020. Energy Secretary Ed Miliband called Trump a racist misogynist in 2016. This is not just about one person. This is about the fundamental impossibility of maintaining normal diplomatic relations with a leader who operates outside the norms of factual discourse and who will say anything, no matter how inflammatory or false, if he thinks it serves his political interests. Starmer has invested enormous political capital in trying to develop a good working relationship with Trump. The Labour Party's centre-left policies align much more closely with Democrats than with Republicans, but Starmer understands that Britain needs American cooperation on trade, defence, NATO, and countless other issues. So he has swallowed his principles, ignored Trump's past attacks on his colleagues, and tried to charm the president. So let's break down what this really means. Trump's claim about Sharia law in London is part of a broader pattern of Islamophobic rhetoric that he has deployed throughout his political career. He has repeatedly characterized Muslim-majority areas in Europe as no-go zones, claimed that Muslims cheered during the 9/11 attacks, and portrayed immigration from Muslim countries as an existential threat to Western civilization. None of these claims are based in fact. They are deliberate provocations designed to inflame his political base in the United States by stoking fear of Islam and immigration. But when the President of the United States makes these claims, on the world stage at the United Nations, they have real-world consequences. They legitimize Islamophobia. They embolden far-right movements. They put Muslim communities at risk. And they force democratic leaders like Starmer into impossible positions. If Starmer condemns Trump's remarks too forcefully, he risks damaging the US-UK relationship and potentially facing economic retaliation through tariffs or other measures. If he doesn't condemn them strongly enough, he appears weak and complicit in attacks on his own city's mayor and Muslim communities. And this is where the stakes become very real. Starmer's calculation is clear from his responses. He defended Khan and called Trump's claims nonsense and ridiculous, which are strong words in the normally cautious language of diplomacy. But he refused to call Trump's remarks Islamophobic, even though that is precisely what they are. He said he wouldn't get drawn into a war of words. This is Starmer trying to thread an impossible needle, defending his colleague and his city's reputation while not provoking Trump to the point where the relationship becomes unmanageable. The White House response to Khan's accusation of racism and Islamophobia reveals how this dynamic works. White House spokesman Davis Ingle told CNN that Khan clearly suffers from a severe case of Trump derangement syndrome and has done a terrible job as mayor. This is the standard Trump playbook: attack viciously, then when criticized, claim that the critic is mentally unstable or partisan, rather than engaging with the substance of the criticism. Now here's the part no one is talking about. Trump's attack on London and Khan came during the same UN speech where he delivered numerous other false claims that CNN fact-checked extensively. He repeated his lie that he won the 2020 election. He falsely claimed that we've already solved inflation, we solved prices, when inflation had actually been worsening since May. He claimed the US has given $350 billion to Ukraine, when the actual figure is roughly $135 billion in allocations. He claimed 25 million migrants entered the US under Biden, when the actual figure was under 11 million encounters, many of whom were expelled. He repeated his debunked claim that foreign prisons were emptied into the United States. This pattern of constant, shameless lying on the world stage creates a crisis for allies. How do you maintain diplomatic relations with a leader who simply invents reality? Traditional diplomacy assumes that all parties are operating from a shared understanding of basic facts, even if they disagree about policy. But Trump doesn't operate that way. He says whatever he wants, regardless of truth, and dares anyone to call him on it. This changes the balance of power between the United States and its allies in fundamental ways. Historically, the US-UK special relationship has been built on shared values, common interests, and mutual respect. But under Trump, it becomes a relationship of intimidation and humiliation. Britain needs the United States more than the United States needs Britain. Trump knows this, so he can attack London's mayor, lie about Sharia law, insult British institutions, and still expects Starmer to smile, nod, and sign cooperation agreements. The fact that Trump launched this attack just 1 week after being feted with extraordinary royal honours makes the humiliation even more pointed. The message is clear. Britain can shower Trump with pomp and circumstance. King Charles can host him at Windsor Castle. Starmer can bend over backwards to accommodate him, and Trump will still attack whenever it suits his political purposes. There are no rewards for good behaviour in Trump's world, only punishments for insufficient submission. Let's zoom out and look at the broader pattern here, because Trump's relationship with Starmer has been turbulent from the beginning. In October 2024, just weeks before the US presidential election, Trump's legal team filed a complaint with the Federal Election Commission accusing Starmer's Labour Party of blatant foreign interference in the US election in favour of Kamala Harris. The complaint was based on a Labour Party official posting a rallying cry for current and former staffers to travel to battleground states and campaign for Harris. Starmer defended this as routine, noting that Labour volunteers have travelled to help Democrats in previous elections, that it was voluntary rather than party-led, and that similar exchanges happen in both directions. But Trump used it to paint Starmer as an enemy trying to interfere in American democracy. This accusation came despite the fact that in 2015, former Obama aides Jim Messina and David Axelrod were hired as advisors by Britain's Conservative and Labour parties respectively, with Messina's Conservatives winning. Cross-Atlantic political volunteering is completely normal. Trump turned it into a scandal because it was politically useful. So here's the bottom line. President Trump falsely accused London of moving towards Sharia law and attacked Mayor Sadiq Khan as terrible during a speech at the United Nations, just 1 week after an unprecedented second state visit to Britain. What changed is that Trump demonstrated once again that diplomatic courtesies, state visits and cooperation agreements mean nothing to him when there's political advantage in attacking allies. Prime Minister Starmer called Trump's claims nonsense and ridiculous while defending Khan, but refused to characterize the remarks as Islamophobic and said he wouldn't engage in a war of words. What's still uncertain is how long Starmer can maintain this balancing act of defending British interests and officials while avoiding a complete breakdown in relations with Trump. It's also uncertain whether Trump's constant attacks on Muslim leaders and communities will eventually force even cautious politicians like Starmer to take a stronger stand. What could happen is that Trump continues attacking Khan and other Muslim political figures whenever it serves his purposes, forcing Starmer into repeated humiliating positions where he has to defend his colleagues while avoiding confrontation with the American president. Alternatively, if Trump's provocations become too extreme, Starmer might calculate that British public opinion demands a stronger response, even at the cost of damaging relations with Washington. Why this matters institutionally is that it reveals how Trump's style of politics corrodes the foundations of the international order. Democratic alliances have historically been built on shared values, mutual respect, and truthful discourse. Trump rejects all of these principles. He lies constantly, attacks allies publicly, and demands submission rather than partnership. Leaders like Starmer are left trying to navigate an impossible situation where maintaining the relationship requires tolerating insults and falsehoods that would normally be unacceptable. This story is far from over. Keep your eyes on how Starmer manages future provocations from Trump and whether there's a breaking point where the political cost of accommodation outweighs the benefits of maintaining good relations with Washington.